Okay, so the reason I'm returning to this is because I was following a Twitter conversation, which was obviously a bad idea to begin with. Someone had brought up the illegal immigration issue in Canada, and someone responded with something to the effect of, what issue? It's only an issue to a handful of racists and xenophobes. Well, in my last video on the topic, I mentioned the homeless and the overcrowding in the homeless shelters. And one thing I haven't been doing in my last several videos is bringing up the numbers. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to take bets on how the overcrowding of the homeless shelter system in Toronto is going to affect the homeless death rates. All right, so let's look at this. Fact sheet. Homelessness in Toronto. In 2016, more than 16,000 unique individuals used the city-administered emergency shelter system. 11% of shelter users stayed for more than a year, using 61% of capacity. 22% were homeless for more than 6 months, meeting the federal definition of chronic homelessness. These 3,583 people likely have more complex challenges and need supportive housing. Okay, blah, 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 blah. On an average night in September 2017, 5,092 people were using the city's emergency shelter system. Comparatively, in the year prior, there were 4,157. 11% of shelter users stayed for more than a year, using 61% of capacity. If I'm doing my math correctly, that means there's about 2,900 beds, city-administered emergency shelter beds. Okay? For as many as 5,100 people on any given day. Okay? That's, is that 60% more people are being squoze into the emergency shelter system than they have beds? It's fucking insanity. Now, let's check out the homeless deaths 2017. 100 people. Homeless people died in 2017. And according to this chart, I expected higher numbers in January, February, our coldest months. But apparently, our hottest month, July, that's actually the real killer. Right? Even homeless Canadians know how to handle the cold, but heat like that? Just as dangerous. I mean, was it just a couple of weeks ago? The heat wave in Montreal killed 54 people due to heat-related illnesses. And the claim was not that they were all homeless. This was just people. So I'm actually, I saw one coming. I just didn't see. I should have seen that coming. That July would have more deaths than January or February. Squeezing 5,000 people into beds for 2,900 people. Now, our shelter system is half filled with illegal immigrants. Now, I don't know if that means half filled the 2,900 beds or half filled the 5,100 or so that, they squeeze homeless people in as best they can. But either way, that's a huge number of homeless people who aren't going to be able to find shelter now. Right? And I'm trying to figure out a way to do the math here to determine, last year the shelter system, let's assume it's the big number. Let's assume that they're squeezing the immigrants in the same way they squeeze in homeless. And you have 2,500 or so illegal immigrants in the homeless shelter system, leaving 2,500 room. Oh, except that's not quite accurate, is it? Because the dorms that are housing about 800 illegal immigrants in Toronto, they're supposed to evict them so that the students can get back to school. And if they do, I imagine it's going to be the emergency shelter system that takes on that burden. So that's 800 more beds out the window. That leaves maybe 1,300 beds for homeless, which means 1,300 minus 5,000. That's 3,700 people that aren't going to be able to find a shelter. Right? And we're in the hot months now. I wonder, compared to last year, how many homeless are dying this month. Right? Come January, February, if they don't do something about this, how many homeless aren't going to have shelters and are going to die on the streets? One thing that's really bugging me is that this Toronto.ca and Toronto Public Health, this tracking system, this is new. Right? They didn't do this before. Data is being collected for people who are experiencing homelessness and die while living at shelters on the street or at other locations in Toronto. This will provide solid evidence on which to base efforts. Nobody did this until last year. Nobody was ever doing this. Right? So the chart that we do have showing these deaths by month and, by per week and the age ranges, gender, which is 74% male, by the way. Just throwing that out there. They don't have cause. They don't have causes of death. I don't think they bother to look into it because it costs money. Right? What they do have is this completely useless chart. By location, death by location, broken down into indoors, outdoors, and unknown. How could it be unknown? Like if somebody moved a body so that you don't know whether or not they died inside or indoors or outdoors, isn't that a crime now? Shouldn't you be investigating this? And indoors, on its own, without cause, doesn't mean anything because someone could be experiencing exposure-related maladies and find their way to a shelter or a hospital and then die anyway. This is just fucking ridiculous. I'm still trying to do the math. I'll get back to you. Alright, I've given up on the math. I can tell you this, though. I doubt the number of homeless between this year and next is going to increase drastically, or decrease drastically for that matter. What I will say is that every death above 100, I'm happy to contribute to the fact that there's just not enough room in the shelters now. And, the Liberals at the federal level are doing literally nothing to aid the situation except throw money around and demand the cities take illegal immigrants. So, forget the $90 million that my city is earmarked to pay for God knows what. Forget the hundreds of millions that the feds are legislating to take care of God knows what, because it's not housing or securing the border. Forget the money for a second. Every life over 100 next year, this year, is the cost. Okay? 100 was our own problem, our own homeless problem. Every single life is what it costs now. Everyone over 100. So if it's 120 next year, that means it cost 20 lives. Fuck the hundreds of millions of dollars. What it cost was lives. And it cost lives because Trudeau doesn't know how to fucking keep his tweet in his pants, man.
Relevant links to shit I said in the description? Maybe. I'm Irving Twin. Like, subscribe, or don't. It's a free country. At least it used to be.